Good evening. Welcome along. It's the Cardiff City phone in. We got one more guest, hopefully, to come back into the room. But at the moment, we've got Simon Willis, and we're joined once again by the legend that is Gary in Kafili. So thank you both for being here, and hopefully, we'll be joined by Paul Mohammed, just coming in now, actually. Thank you, by the way, thank you very much to Nigel for doing a great job with the show. I watched the show from afar over the last couple of weeks and enjoyed it. And thanks also to Steve Wiggy, who did a similar thing recently as well. And it's just good. It's just good to catch up on stuff. And I suppose lots of fans pick up on this show from all over the place. So I had it from their perspective. So Paul Mohammed is also in the room. Hi, Paul. So we're going to just go into things. We haven't. Actually, I'll go to you first, Paul. If that's all right. We haven't got a game to look back on, but of course you got the Wales games going on, and there's a little bit of kind of City-related stuff there. Sparky playing up front for Wales, and with Ruben being in the squad, etc. And Wales doing pretty well actually, and I'll come back to that later on. But Gary, who mentioned that the last time he was on this show, we were talking about having the manager situation sorted out by the international break, and I think we're in the second one since we talked about it, and it's still kind of going on. So it's a bit kind of farcical, Paul, don't you think? That it doesn't need to be any clarity for the incumbent manager, for the fans, for the fan base, for the squad. Like what's going on?
I think I said a few weeks ago, didn't I? They'll give him more time.
But don't they need to say that?
and,
Speak to us,
Clearly they have, but I don't think it's a bad thing personally, because I think that it's a case of don't make a rash decision like we've done in the past. Don't give an interim manager a long-term contract like we've done in the past. Just don't make the same mistakes that we've made in the past, and we're back to square one again, exactly where we are now. In fact, flirting with relegation 3 seasons in 4. It's, at some point, the trapdoor opens, and it's difficult to come back. So it's a huge decision to make. So I don't see any problem with taking time to make that decision, particularly when there's a man in situ who they brought in themselves, remember, in the summer. So that tells me that they have faith in him. They've given him that, extended that faith to the job, the interim job. He's doing a reasonably good job, particularly where we came from after 6-7 games with 1 point. So it's a massive improvement, and we were top of the form table until the last 2 games. We were top of the form table, weren't we? So you could say his audition is going very well, but to me, it's still an audition, and he's a rookie. So you either give him more time. Now, I understand the uncertainty is because we just don't know. And then there's press reports saying he's gone to Malaysia in this international break, which makes sense to me. If he's the first time he's met the owner in person, as has been reported. I don't know if that's true or not, but that makes complete sense to me to do that. Whether you should be announcing that to your fan base is a moot point, and I don't know whether sometimes these things are better done in private and without making announcements, because then you announce to the world what you're doing, and I understand that's when you've got money and you want to sign players, but why should we do that? Robbins has just come on the market, which is an interesting one for me, and I think in the absence of Reza, I think Robbins will be a great shout to rebuild. He's got a proven track record on a low budget, rebuilding a club. He's done great at Coventry, 6-7 years, which is way longer than most Championship managers last. So I think they should continue to take their time, because we're still in the bottom 3. It's a massive decision to make, and it shouldn't be rushed. So I think leave it as is for now.
All right. So I'll bring Simon in here, because how can I put this, Simon? You people believe that you know stuff, right? And certain communications are put out through Ace podcasts, etc., and hints, etc. Well, you just heard what Mo said about it. I'll just tell you, my take on it is, I think probably for Omar Riza, really, and also for clarity and for the club. I don't think they can just keep on hanging around. I don't think it's probably doing anyone any good. I take Paul's point about sharing information, but what's your take on this, Simon?
I think there's a few different elements to it. I think number one being the club has never been very good at communicating with fans. And I think if the fans knew that there was a certain plan in place, that's one thing. If Omar Risa knows what's happening, like he knows he's there till Christmas, or he knows he's there till the end of the season, or he knows he's there till X date, I think that's okay. Would it be better if it was communicated to the fans? Of course it would. I also agree with what Paul said about Mark Robbins. I think he'd be, not only is I think he'd be a good selection as a manager, I think tactically he likes three at the back and he likes a certain formation, which works very well. And I think that actually, I've said this a while, it would suit the players within our squad quite well. He's also got experience with fighting relegation. Whilst I don't think we'll be down the bottom come the end of the season, probably. We shouldn't be, really, but I suppose there's always a chance. So you have that element. But of course, there were strong links to Slaven Bilic. At one point, it looked like he was probably coming in, and then that kind of eased off a little bit. There's definitely something to it. He's not available until January because he's got some sort of contract elsewhere, which I think would cost quite a lot of money to get him out of. So effectively, I felt that once it was clear that Omar Risa, the players were on board with him, the fans were quite all right with him, and he was doing a fairly decent job, I felt that the obvious thing to do was to give him till Christmas or January, with the idea, as long as it's communicated to Omar Risa, to the fans, you could then readdress it. So if things are not going great come January, because the new manager sort of bounce, if you like, has kind of faded away, you have the option to bring in a Slaven Bilic in January, and it could be quite smooth. But as always, one of the biggest problems with Cardiff City is it always seems to be reactive rather than proactive. So you sack the manager, but you don't seem to have a plan about who's going to be the next manager. Then you interview a load of people. Some of those interviews go very well, some of them not so well. But then there's no sort of progress with it. Now, I'm a big believer if the players are happy, you're going to get more out of them, both from a technical point of view and from a just, fight and grit and things like this, which are important. And at the moment, the players seem to be very behind. It's not very often you see players so publicly come out and support a manager. So I think that's something which needs to be taken into account as well. But it's the lack of communication, I think. But it does, I will caveat that with, it does depend if it's being communicated to Omar Risa and Darren Pearce and the other people within that coaching staff. As long as they know what the plan is, then I think that's okay. Now you can criticise the club for not, communicating with the fans very well. I think that's a fair criticism. But ultimately, if you're asking me, I think someone said, "Is there anything to the Bilic rumours?" There's definitely something to the Bilic rumours, 100%. And if you were asking my opinion, I would say that he's probably the most likely next manager of Cardiff City, whether that be at the end of the season, January, or in the near future. I don't know.
Okay, so Gary, to summarise what I said at the beginning, but last time you were on the show, I think you can tell me, but let's put it this way: we weren't having a good run, were we?
No, we just lost 4-1 at Hull, Steve. And I said it'll probably be I bet before the next international break they won't have a manager. And now it's 2 international breaks. So, but after that, they played some good football, didn't they? They beat Millwall, Portsmouth, and Plymouth, didn't they? 3 home games. that dragged us up by the bootlaces, because obviously up until then it was a disastrous start. But even though we were the form team for 6 or 7 games then, it still only got us back to the level where we were just above the, it just got us back to parity, really, didn't it? Because we had 1 point in 7 games, didn't we? And then we went from, we had a great little run, got us up the table a little bit, but then the last 2 results were a little bit so. I thought at Luton we lost to a set-piece goal, which is, Luton looked awful, really, and we were just, on another day, we had, probably a punt, and then we went, and then Blackburn at home, and then Risa goes over to Malaysia, and everything's gone a bit quiet in the last fortnight, and then we're back in action on Saturday. So the players certainly responded to him. I mean, like Si said, the number of players that came out, and NG came out, didn't he? Callum O'Dowd had come out. Robinson certainly came out and said how
Jack Alnwick,
how better it was. So obviously they had no faith in Bullet. I mean, we all could see that. It was awful, wasn't it? The Bullet, the players looked absolutely terrible,
Gary, just to say, the Bullet and Rizza kind of thing. I mean, obviously they were working together.
Yeah.
But tactically, in terms of the actual formation, the formation hasn't actually particularly changed.
Yeah, but the personnel are, Steve, isn't it? All of a sudden, Turnbull's come in. Turnbull looks an okay player.
He's been great.
He's actually played, isn't he? And looked something like a player. I mean, obviously, Robertson has been, has played. Caldwell's had been given a free rein, isn't he? I mean, Bullet never played Caldwell, did he? He never played it. He's given him a free. The last couple of games, like the team has been a little bit indifferent, but up until then, the Plymouth, Portsmouth, all those games, he looked, a player, something. He showed what he can do, didn't he? Tanner's been, Chambers seemed to have settled down with Goudas.
He started playing really well. They had a good partnership, weren't they?
Yeah, everybody seemed to be. Obviously, it's to do with the attitude, isn't it? They got behind Risa and they started putting a few performances in. But I think we all know that, with Robinson, carrying an Achilles, isn't he, or whatever, and he's a bit injury prone. There's 1 or 2 others who've been nursed. So we're desperate for a centre forward, because I mean, Kanga and Matey as an option up front is just big. It's just not good enough, really, is it?
So Gary, right? I'll start with you, and then I'll whiz around in it. So I'm going to give you a ridiculously difficult question. Yeah. If you're Vincent Tan, and we've lost a couple of games. We're back in the bottom 3.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity. We probably still don't really have that, but we had the opportunity during the international break to do something significant. We don't appear to have done it, although we don't know, because like you say, like Simon said, maybe he's told other people, but he hadn't told, he hasn't made public. Who knows? But you're Vincent Tan, so do you stick with Omarisa? Do you give him a few months till Christmas? Do you have that Bilic on the back burner thing in the back of your mind? If you didn't announce, what was going on, and he's got every right to walk, well, so be it. There's Mark Robbins out there. There's good managers out there, or do you not do that, and you make a decision and bring one of those other managers in now?
I can't guess how Vincent Tan thinks. Or
how does Gary Lee think?
I think what they'll do is probably they'll tick along exactly the same as they have till Christmas, and then see what if Bilic is a reality. If he's coming in January, they'll ask him to do the job till January. I can't see the slot giving Risa a contract or anything longer than the January window, because whoever's the manager then is going to be in charge of bringing players in, isn't he? So if they're going to appoint a full-time manager like Bilic, then Bilic will probably want to say, won't he? But whether he'll get that or not is another matter. Okay. But I don't think whoever comes in without a centre forward, or at least 1 or 2 forwards signed in January, with like Paul said, this is the 3rd year of the 4. We're looking at a relegation struggle, aren't we? Because we're not, we haven't got the firepower there to sort of. There's loads of games. I put Luton. If we'd have scored first at Luton, I'm sure we would have won that night. And Luton looked hopeless. And but without whoever comes in January has got to be given some sort of, or he's going to be looking at being the owner of a League One side, couldn't he? Or it's going to be a hell of a struggle then. just to get up the league, because there's 12 teams separated by 4 points at the moment, from 11th down to us in 22nd, isn't it? 4 points. It's a crazy league this year.
Yeah.
You win 2, you climb 5 or 6 places. Yeah. Like us now, we've had a blip in the last 2 games, and we're back where we started 7 or 8 games ago.
Yeah, it's like snakes and ladders, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Paul, do you want to come in on that? What you kind of summarised it. What you're saying, I think, is that from a kind of a strategic kind of business management point of view, this kind of hiatus in a way kind of makes sense. Is that more or less what you're saying?
I'm saying that it really depends on who's available. I've just actually looked at the betting odds. I haven't looked at those for a while. The betting odds are quite interesting because the bookies are rarely wrong, are they? And they say that they're only Reese's 8-1 on, and Bilic is 9-2, and then everybody else is 20-1. And Mark Robbins isn't even in the betting.
Okay.
So Ruben Sellers and Tony Mowbray are 20-1. Sellers, that's the Reading manager, isn't it? The one was mentioned a few weeks ago. So according to that, it's Reese's job, if the betting's to be believed. So, but if it was me, and I mentioned Robbins, if Robbins was available, it's certainly worth a conversation to see if A, he's interested, and B, he's the right man for the job, because I think he would be a good fit, in my view. But look, it's a difficult decision because of where we are in the league. It could easily go one way or the other because the table's so tight. You only got to have a run of games again, and you can be nudging the top 6. I mean, it's so tight, the championship.
Yeah.
But we're a third of the way through the season now, aren't we? And we're in the bottom 3, albeit by a win takes you up to 6th places or something, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, so a point there at the moment.
Tan and the board would be petrified by relegation because of the financial aspects. It would be a disaster for the valuation and all sorts. It would just be a disaster. League One. So they would be absolutely petrified of that and conscious that the next decision has to be with that in mind. So it all depends who's available. If nobody else is available, if Robbins isn't available and it's between Bilic, Reza, I think they'll stick with Reza at least until Christmas, maybe even until they'll announce to the end of the season. I don't think anybody would be opposed to that as a strategic. It would make sense. It would just give consistency to where we're going. It will give him the January window because we desperately need a striker. We probably need another ball playing central midfielder because the play's improved in the last few weeks because we've gone away from the 2 holding midfielders to more technical ball playing up and down type midfielders like Robertson, who's going to be a very good player. It's a shame we have to rely on him as a starter now because he's probably one of our best up box-to-box midfielders. And he's got a bit of technical ability, breaks up play. Turnbull is a technically good player too, who will come into his own, I think, if he's given a run of games. And he's young, he's 25, so he's the right age. All those things. And I think we're signing a lot of young players now, which makes a change. We just sold McGuinness, which was a prime example. As if you pick up somebody from an academy at a young age and you develop him for a couple of years, you can make a lot of money. And we've rarely done that, have we? McGuinness is probably the only standout. So they've looked at that and thought, right, this has got to be the way to go. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? We can't keep signing journeymen. You might take a chance on a striker. We're desperate for a striker. I think if Atete comes back, I think he can offer something different.
Yeah.
To what
he's not far away, I don't think.
No, and that's good news. So coming back to the question, I think it all depends who's available, but I think they may well give it to Reza until Christmas or the end of the season.
Okay, Simon, I know you'll have opinions on this, yeah. So if Robbins isn't available, that could only be, I would guess, because either we couldn't afford him or he didn't want to come because he's not currently employed, right? But I'll put it a slightly different way to you, Si. Yeah, you're a Omer, okay. You were number 2 to Bullet. You've got a good connection with the players. You've done fairly well. Until recently, and there's all this gossip and rumor mill going on around you. I mean, how's that going to make him feel? Doesn't he need a bit of clarity?
Well, yeah, he needs that bit of stability. I know some people have said, but he's got a contract till the end of the season anyway, so he knew he was going to be here for a year. But it's a very, very, very different role running the team, doing the media, day to day, everything. When everything is on you, decisions, tactics, everything's on you. I think it's very different to being someone who's more of an ideas man and a coach, which an assistant would be. So, and I, of course, I'm dumbing it down a little bit in terms of their roles, but you know what I mean. So I do think and that was why I said earlier, if they've communicated to him what the plan is, then I'm a little less frustrated because I don't expect them to communicate with the fans because they never do. But if they haven't communicated to him, I do feel like it's a bit naughty because he wants the job. He said he wants the job. I would imagine he would like to have at least till the end of the season to show his worth, not just as a manager to Cardiff City, but a manager to other places that show that he can be the main man and be the manager. My concern as a Cardiff fan is that I feel like maybe the last 1 or 2 games that we've tactically been found out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I worry that because he's an inexperienced manager, has he got a plan B?
Back to our old Bullet then, haven't we?
Yeah, and there seems like there's a reluctance within the club as well to really bring in some of the younger, highly rated players and give them an opportunity. So you're limited in the choices then that you have off the bench. I think it was the Blackburn game where he only made 1 sub.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
But there wasn't a great deal of choice in terms of people who were going to change the game. And that's where maybe the problem is. But which is one of the reasons why I actually think, whether it be in January or at the end of the season, for me, when I look at all the different managerial candidates that we've either spoken to or rumoured to have spoken to, like Stephen Schumacher, Ruben Sellers, Mark Robbins again is available now, Bilic, and a few others. For me, Bilic ticks the most boxes. He's got championship experience. He's got promoted. But most of all, and this is the one that really sells it to me personally above maybe some of the other candidates, is he has a history of coaching, improving, and giving young players an opportunity to play first-team football in the Championship. We had on the Welsh show last night, we talked about the amount of talent coming through for Wales, but a large part of them are Cardiff City based, in the 21s, the 19s, the 16s. There's so many really talented players coming through. And I would like a manager who, one, is going to take the first team forward, but is also going to give those young players the opportunities at the right times and when they're ready to play for the first team and become, I think it was Paul just said about Matt McGuinness. We've signed Alex Robertson, who's young. We've signed Will Fish, who's young. Jesper Darland, who's young. We've already got, Ruben and Ollie Tanner. Then we've got Joel Colwell doing very well on loan at Cheltenham. Joel Bagan. You've also got Eli King. And that's just the ones who are kind of out on loan. You're not even looking at the current 23s who are playing, like your Reindorfs and your twos and Louis Giles is someone who I just think looks like he's going to be a great player, and he's someone I would have liked to have seen play. Ronan Capacchio. The list is almost endless of the young players coming through.
Lots of them getting run out with the Wales youth setup as well. So just briefly before I go to Gary, what's your gut feeling? What do you think is going to happen? Shall we say before the middle of December?
look, if I'm being honest, I think for whatever reason, and I'm sure there's various reasons, the board or the owner don't seem to want to pull the trigger on Omar Risa till the end of the season. I don't know why exactly. I've heard different reasons and things, but I couldn't tell you exactly why. I think the lack of a football man on the board or between the board and the club does harm us. I've said that many times. My gut feeling is it'll be someone else than Risa, just because I think if they were going to stick with Risa, they would have done it already. So it's tricky, you know, because I do think because of the players' relationship with him and the small improvements he's made, there's ways that you can give him till the end of the season, but maybe have like an out clause on both sides in January, say, if things do go a bit awry, where you can kind of part ways quietly, or he can be moved to a coaching role and you bring someone in without too much fuss. But that again, Steve, sorry to take up so much time, but like that comes down to if you had someone at the club, like a technical director or a director of football, whose sole job is to run the football side of things, that's the sort of person who's going to have those different plans and strategies in place to make sure that the football side is constantly evolving and ticking over and going in the right direction. And we just don't have that direction.
All right. So off the back of what Si just said, Gary, it's a great one. 2 words for you, okay? First one's Dave, the second one's Jones.
Oh, no. Look,
I mean, in an experience kind of, you know.
But Steve, under Vincent Tan, he got stung when Malky was here and all that, and he's never ever. I think he's going to be totally against ever having anybody as a director of football or a middleman. It's just not going to happen. Not while Tan's here. It's not going to happen. So it doesn't matter who's proposed to come in. Vincent Tan will never do that. And why he doesn't do that, I don't know. Because we've all said over the last decade or so, for a supposedly successful businessman like him, why he doesn't have someone in who can run his football enterprise for him when he's pumping money in, it beggars belief. But a director of football is never going to happen, is it? He's never ever going to have a director of football. And that's why we always lurch from one manager to another one. Steve Morrison, Hudson, you know, Risa's come in now to take over from another manager who he sacked. You know, he was convinced by Mehmet Dalman in the summer to keep Bullock, wasn't he? That's obvious. And then 6 or 7 games into the season, he sacks him. You know, after giving him a 2-year contract. So he must be thinking, it's never going to happen. You're never going to have a director of football here while Vincent Tan's in charge of the club. And then whoever comes in January. The thing is, I think they will stick with Risa at the moment, because there's no one. If Bilic is going to come in at all, it's not till January,
which isn't far away actually.
Well, it isn't far away, but probably when you think about it, we like Paul said, we played a third of the season now. By the time Christmas comes along, we're going to play another 9 games, 9 more games, 8 or 9 more games. We could either be halfway up the league, or fingers crossed, but who knows, or we could be in real trouble, couldn't we? Because if you look at the next 6 games, we've got Sunderland, and then we've got QPR home. That's a must-win game, without a shadow of a doubt, the same as Plymouth was. Then you've got somewhere like Coventry. I think you've got Watford, and then Preston. I think
that's
all
right.
Teams within our little sort of not Watford, but the other.
There's a few winnable ones there, aren't there?
There's a few winnable ones, but they got to be won, haven't they? And if they don't win those or don't get decent points. Obviously, if they stick with Omar Risa, because up till the Luton and Blackburn game, he was doing great, wasn't he? I mean, the points we picked up were great. The football was better. Yeah. It was actually entertaining. You come out of the ground with a smile. Yeah,
with a smile on the face. Yeah,
they scored some goals. Everybody played, everybody played to their potential. It was night and day, wasn't it? So what Bullock was
absolutely predicting. Yeah.
And we scored 5 and 2. I mean, 5 goals at home. Well, gee, and then 2, and then we have a good performance at West Brom. Could have even nicked that game probably against the team was supposedly top.
Thinking that one, didn't we?
And then obviously we hit the buffers a little bit. So, but then, like I said, it would be disastrous. Like it's been said, it would be disastrous for us to go down. So, are they going to trust a rookie manager or like Risa, to see us through. What happens come January now if we're still down there and struggling? What happens then? Because what are they going to do then? How are they going to react then? God knows.
Okay, I'm aware that Simon. I know he's got an appointment fairly soon that he's got to go off to. So just before I go to Paul, can I ask you briefly, and I mean briefly, and I go back to Paul then. What's your gut feeling, Si, about us having some money to spend come January, whoever's in charge?
I think it will depend on the manager, mate. I think if it's Omar Risa till the end of the season, I don't think we'll be having any money to spend. I think it'll be loans. If it was to be, a Bilic, Robbins, whoever, but it's their choice as the manager, I think they'll find a little bit of money, basically.
Okay, Paul, I'll come to you. I just want to bring this comment up from Steve Thomas, because I managed to watch both games, even though I was out the country, and it seemed to me that. Let's look at Steve's comments. He's saying it's a concern we seem to have been worked out a bit in the last couple of games. Need points out the next two games against Sheffield Wednesday and QPR, who are fellow strugglers. And when you look at the fixtures, when I look at the fixtures in advance for November, I thought, hang on, we can do okay here. We've got quite a few winnable games, and then we get off into that run. But Paul, would you say? We did get a little bit sussed, because it seems to me in both those games, particularly Luton, which surprised me for a Premiership club, a recent Premiership club, small ground, very physical, and they sort of did a job on Ruben. I thought they sort of closed down our main contender for creativity, and they did an old Cardiff City on Cardiff City. We were kind of sussed. Would you agree, or was it tiredness? What do you think?
A set play goal. I think that game, it was a game too far. I just thought that squad limitations. Robinson wasn't fully fit. He started the game taken off. In hindsight, he probably would have thought target the Blackburn game and maybe put Robinson on the. I think he should have rotated the side a little bit more, because it was 3 games in a week. It'd been an intensive period. We were traveling to there on the Saturday, 2 home games. We just won the home game against Norwich. I just think he stuck with the same side because it was a winning side. But I think tactically and looking at the squad, in hindsight, I think he should have mixed it up a little bit and rested players who had knocks and maybe looked at the Saturday game more than the Wednesday game. Just try and get something at Luton and beat Blackburn. I'm not saying we were found out. I just think our squad limitations, tired. I thought we looked tired against Blackburn. Completely tired. They passed the ball around us and completely outdid us, didn't they, Blackburn?
They did, but stats wise, we actually dominated stats in every way in that game.
Yeah, but they moved the ball so much better than we did, didn't they? And they moved the ball into dangerous areas. They bypassed our midfield a lot. They just looked a far better football inside than we did when they had the ball. But I think a lot of that was down to fatigue. I just thought those 2 games caught up with us. I wouldn't say. Sometimes you can look at his, because you always highlight managers with substitutions, and go back to the Bristol City one. There are times where he does he's learning on the job, which is fair enough. That he's a rookie and he's learning on the job, and you have to expect that. And I think at times his substitutions aren't great, but other times they work. So he's learning on the job. He's a rookie. And that's what's going to happen with this manager. And we're going to have ups and downs but that's the Championship as well, isn't it? We're not a consistent side. We don't have top players. We don't have a striker. Unless Robinson's playing, we don't really have a goal threat. We're not really a threat from set pieces anymore. We used to be one of the top scorers under Bullet in the one season. Then we've fallen off the radar for set pieces. We concede so many in set pieces. We're very inconsistent, which just mirrors where we are, up and down. And I think it's going to be that type of season. But I still think there are 4 to 6 worse sides than us in this league, and we'll just survive if we carry on as we are.
Okay, I think Simon's got to go quite quickly. So, Simon, I looked at the league table earlier, I think there's 1 point between 6 clubs. where we are, and we're 4 points off mid-table. So it's kind of a crazy division. So where are we going to end up this season?
Excuse me. I still think that the squad is good enough to get up the table and be free of relegation, mid-table sort of thing. We obviously got a few players to come back from injury, but we must bring a striker in some form, whether it's a loan or a signing in the January window, because Robinson, even if he wants to, he's not going to be fit to play every single game. And I agree with Paul as well that we looked tired the last few games, but we haven't had the players there really to rotate and maintain the same level of intensity and things like pressing and stuff like that. So he might have to find a different way of playing to accommodate the lack of options in the squad. But I still think mid-table, mate. I got to be honest.
Okay, and so as an example, Kean Ashford, just to throw Kean Ashford in there. Kean Ashford last season, he came on and scored that great goal. He looked great. He looks like he's not quite having the breakthrough season that maybe that we envisaged. And then you see El Ghazi, he's not quite cutting the mustard. He's not, he's not delivering anywhere what he could. So is that the kind of thing maybe we might see then if we're only going to be looking at loanies and whatever, that maybe we're going to have to give some more of the youngsters a bit of a run, Yeah,
they're going to have to trust some of the. If they're not going to bring anyone in, they're going to have to trust the likes of Kean Ashford. Joel Bagan, I think, is a bit unlucky to be playing a bit more regular.
I'd play him. I'd have O'Dowd playing further forward, every day of the week myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, everyone's said about Reindorf. I know that there's certain people within the club who don't think he's ready, but you don't know until you try. And I just think that his pressing and enthusiasm and his raw, just the way he plays, is very sort of chaotic. I think that can be a benefit off the bench, as opposed to when a Mate or a Kanga come on, and it seems to not just change the way we play, but makes us very one-dimensional and very easy to play against. So, there's youngsters there. Kean Ashford, I think, could be a good option off the bench.
I don't know. He's just not having the season that I thought he might. But with Mate, to his credit, when he came on against Luton, he put himself about, got stuck in, and he kind of, he looked lively, and he had a physical presence at least. So I know you got to dive off. Thanks for being with us, and see you soon. Cheers, man. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers, Simon.
Cheers, guys.
So Gary, I come to you on in terms of other options, and particularly with the view of what we think or what the rumor is really. I know Simon said it there, but the fact that it's unlikely that if we still got Omer in charge come January, they're going to be spending any money. So it's like it's not the $100 million question. It's maybe the $500,000 question. How are we going to get a striker in January, the hardest window of the lot, if we're not going to we're not going to pay any bucks?
Do you know, Steve? Because I think because we got to supposedly bloated squad. I think it's been said, isn't it? We got to get rid of a few players out of the squad we've got before we can bring anyone in, either on loan or even if we paid a transfer fee. But if we don't and we get relegated, to spend a few million, it's not going to happen probably, but to spend a few million in January to try and keep us in this league is going to be better than losing. I mean, the value of the club will go through the floor, won't it, if they go relegated back to League One?
Yeah.
You can tell the actual attendance is at the ground now because of all the different kickoffs we've had, these 12:30 games. I hate, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you can see that in reality they're announcing 17 and 18,000, but there's nowhere near that, there is it, And so I don't think, I think there'll only be, like I think Sai said, I think there'll only be money spent if we've got a full-time manager in, if Bilic comes in or another manager comes in January, and I think they'll be forced then to spend money for a new manager. But if it's Risa, he's going to be looking at maybe a loan, and then getting on with what he's got, and hoping that Atet comes back and stays fit or something, or because El Ghazi's been a major disappointment as far as I'm concerned. He should be showing more than he does, and Willock has been poor as well, in my opinion. In general,
I wonder if Willock's being played out of position. I mean, I think I don't know. Maybe Paul would know. Did he play down the right for QPR?
Wide, he was wide.
Yeah. I just think, again, going back to what I said earlier about, keeping that same formation with the inverted wingers and all the rest of it, looks like that's the way it's going to go. But I'd really like to see Willock given the chance down the right. He didn't look like a striker, did he, when he played there? But, he came to us with quite a good reputation. So he's been another one is kind of underachieving, would you say? Or has he just been playing out of position? What's your take on him?
Maybe a bit of both. You would have expected more from him. Attacking wise, obviously 1 goal, not many assists. El Ghazi the same. Those with El Ghazi, mind he hadn't played for months and months, had he? When he came to us, he hadn't played since Christmas because he was
a particular situation, didn't he?
He was in breach of contract, but he was penned in an investigation, wasn't he? So he couldn't play. And then that was resolved in the summer when we signed him. So he hadn't played for 8-9 months, and that probably showed. But I think with El Ghazi, I mean, he's a technically gifted footballer. He's got a great CV. He will come good. Hopefully he will come good. We need him to. With the problem is we never solved. It all comes back to the striker, doesn't it? Because we've just never solved that position. And interestingly, you mentioned loans. We've only actually used 1 loan this season, and that's Kanga. Yeah,
well, let's stick with Kanga, right? So, a great point from Jonathan there about Isaac Davis. I think I'd love to have seen him back in the side this season. I hope he's back at some point. So Wilfried Kanga, right? So he comes from a relatively decent club, has scored goals in the past. Every now and again on the City social media, they'll show them, where they're all walking along with their boots on the way to training, morning Gov and all this stuff going on. And Kanga's body language is just looks like just not, he's totally disheartened, doesn't want to be here. Do you think there's any possibility, Paul, and can this actually happen? I don't know. Could he actually go back in January, and would that then free us up to bring other players in?
Well, we're not aware, are we, if there's a recall on that loan?
No, there could be, I suppose.
It is quite standard for loans for there to be a recall, but the problem is who's the recall option for?
Why would they want him back?
They don't want him back.
So unless it's in our favour, if we've taken him, the contract is till the end of the season, then we're duty bound to keep him till the end of the season, regardless of whether we play him or not. So it depends, and that's the smart business that you've got to try and do, haven't you? When you take these season long or whatever, when you take these gambles, although in fairness, a loan is less of a gamble than a signing. And thankfully he's not on a 3 or 4 year contract because clearly there's something wrong. So I'm hoping that is something they resolve in January and free him up to go back and then strengthen, because I'm in the camp that I actually think that the owner will provide funds for whoever's in charge to, if the right player's available, particularly a striker or a young player or if the right player's available, you can't ever knock the current hierarchy for not backing managers, and because they do, and if we're in a precarious position in January, and it's clear we need a striker, he likes us to shoot more, he wants us to score more goals. The striker is priority, and they cost money, so that tells me that they have to hedge bets and look at the market. Thankfully, we've got a number of loan options still available. You could have up to 5, so loans are fine. And they're a short-term, low risk, aren't they? But high, you have to pay well for loans. You pay the wages, you pay so on. But it's less risk than a signing. So that, to me, tells me I think we'll be in the market for a striker or 2 in January, depending on if we can get Kanga out. Who's back? Ramsey should be back by then. Isaac Davis, Atete, 1 or 2 others. So if we get a couple of strikers in, suddenly it isn't looking too bad. If if those three players I just mentioned come back, because
Yeah.
they would be knocking on the door of the first team. Certainly, Atete would be an option off the bench.
Yeah.
He'd be on the bench now if he was fit.
He'd be ahead of Kanga, wouldn't he? He'd be ahead of Kanga. I mean, everyone's ahead of Kanga.
Because he scored goals at Championship, although not many.
Yeah.
But then again, who has scored many goals for us?
Yeah.
So yeah, he will offer something we haven't got right now. Ramsey coming back again off the bench with his creativity, holding up play, and Isaac Davis with his pace. I think those are three good players, and we'll hopefully we'll have them back before December.
Yeah, I mean,
here for Isaac Davis. Sorry.
Yeah, Isaac had a bit of a setback, didn't he? Gary, Joe Rolls, of course, there's mixed feelings about Joe Rolls. He's obviously getting on a bit now, and he's picking up a few more injuries. Can do a job, can be quite influential, can be an experienced kind of ball winner, if we like, at least left-footed. We don't have many of those actually in the middle of the park. And then Ramsey, as and when they're both fit, I just wonder, would either of them get into the team? And particularly with Ramsey, I wonder where he play if he comes back in now.
Well, going back to Kanga, by the way, I think Reece has made his mind up on him because he didn't bring him on.
Yeah, it's nowhere near it, is he?
Minutes against Blackburn, and then they had behind closed doors friendly up at Brentford in the break, and he wasn't even in the squad. So whether he was ill or didn't, he didn't even play, and that was an ideal opportunity then to play him when everybody else played. They played a load of young kids up there, really.
Yeah. So
I think Atete, I wouldn't surprise me one little bit to see Atete back on the bench in the next 2 or 3 games. I know he's only had 45 minutes. He played the under-21s about 2 weeks ago, didn't he? And he had one half against Brentford in the behind closed doors. So I think he'll start to get involved again, because he can't be any worse, can he? Than Kanga, because Kanga just doesn't figure. I don't think now. And he just looks like he must be soul destroying for him. He probably doesn't want to be here anymore, to be quite frank.
Doesn't look it, does he?
He's
probably
not looking
awful, Yeah.
Other than that, I think defensively okay. I think particularly over the 6 games that we did okay in, our midfield and defence started look, more confident enough in the championship with the players we've got there. We've got, Darlan's not playing much, and he had a bit of a ropey game against Blackburn, but I think he will be a decent player. Certainly on what we saw of him before. Fish is the same. We got Bagan. We got plenty there. We got midfield now. Obviously Turnbull and Robertson. It's up front. It's all down to that up front, isn't it? We got wingers. We got El Ghazi, Willock. We got loads of wingers. Robinson's, but he's probably being nursed through because of his Achilles problem. And if he doesn't play, we're stuffed, really, aren't we? That's where we really need. I don't think. Ramsey will come probably back in the squad, and probably Rolls might. I think he's been training, isn't he, in the international? I think he's been back in training, isn't he? So he'll probably find he'll probably be back on the bench now. Whether that's where instead of in.
Where would you play Ramsey though, Gary?
Well, he's going to play Ruben's role, probably, isn't he?
He's going to be back. He could only be back up to Ruben if I think he's still got the legs to do that.
Yeah, and I personally, I think, is he going to stay fit for? That's unfortunate, isn't it? That's the problem. Is he going to stay fit for any length of time? He's going to be a bench player and come on here, isn't he? To probably the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes initially, I would have thought. I got no problem sticking with what we got. Turnbull's certainly playing a lot better under Risa than he did before, because we hardly saw him under Bullet. He was just an anonymous figure, wasn't he? He didn't hardly saw him under Bullet. And Robertson does look a decent player. Yeah. And then it's just fitting in one other, and allowing Ruben to be we got to. The thing against Plymouth and Portsmouth, we came out of the blocks and we attacked teams, and we hit them early, didn't we? And we were all over them for that while. But then, it came to a point there then where we just probably did run out of a bit of steam, and we were playing with the same players all the time, and it took its toll, And hopefully, being off for the last 2 weeks, we've only had it's only a Dowder that's really played. I think Siop has played one game in a couple of minutes, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But he's probably a bench, So hopefully we can get back to, because we're going to need to. The next 2 games are big, like someone said. Sheffield Wednesday and QPR.
Yeah, 2 wins in those.
They're big games, Steve, but they're big games. But again, you just hope that we can get a few goals. I mean, it's massive. January is massive. Without the centre forward in January, it's going to be very, very tight.
That's right, and that's a really good point, actually, Paul. Because I think if we've been there before, we've been there for a number of years, really. If you're not scoring goals and you don't feel you got goals in you, as soon as you go 1 down, where the goal's going to come from. And even if we have been defensively quite solid, if we're not going to score, then the pressure builds. Another name which has been thrown in there, Jeff Delacruz, and he said Luke Pearce. He came back. He played in that friendly game against Brentford. He got a goal, a bit of a tap in, but he got a goal. He's been playing with the men who are in Ireland, so maybe he's another one who could be possibly coming through. And we got a Tete and whatever. But I mean, even Willock was picked as a centre forward, before Kanga. So I mean, the writing's on the wall there. And of course, one of our I don't know the plural of nemesis is, but our arch nemesis is Ugbo, of course, to contest with on the weekend, and of course Callum Patterson on the bench. So there's another one, Paul. Played for City, couldn't score to save his life. Go somewhere else and get, not exactly a world beater, but start scoring goals. What's that about?
I'm just looking at the games. Just interestingly, as a point.
Yeah.
In the next 43 days, we have 11 games. Which
Long
picks up early January. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a game every 4 days. So you need a squad. You can't. Which come back to the point I made about the looking tired the last 2 games, because I just think our squad was a little bit limited and he didn't mix it up enough for various reasons. Maybe you could say we didn't have the players to allow him to do that, but I just think we need those players back. We need the options off the bench, because to play every 4 days with the travelling and so on, it's a lot. That's why championship, in the championship, you need goals and you need a strong squad. We lack goals. Our squad is okay if everybody's fit, but you always get injuries because of the amount of games you play, the intensity, the so on.
It's a bit like Wales, Paul. I would say they went. Wales. Again, don't have the choice of players that other nations have. A couple of key players missing. They look so different. That's Cardiff City down to a T, isn't it?
Because of the limited amount of players, a level of quality, etc. So it's important, and I'm glad they played that game in the break to give people minutes and to get people ready, because that 2-week break probably came just at about the right time to get people fit, and hopefully Atete's back this weekend, because again we got 3 games in a week. Traveling to Sheffield, and then we're home, and then we're away again. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask. But thankfully now I've had this 2-week rest. We haven't had many players away. Ruby didn't play for Wales, did he? We haven't really got too many international players playing too much. Dowder and 1 or 2 others. I think Siopis. So that probably came at the right time, and we need that squad, because after 11 games, those next 11 games, there's only 20 games left of the season. So and we'll know a lot more, won't we, by early January where we are and where we think we're going to end up at the end of the season.
Sorry, do you want to come in there, Gary?
Yeah, it's frightening, really, when you think that there's only 20 games left now. By the time we go into the January window, and it's that's what we need. That's what we need to strike it desperately, isn't it? Really, and everybody getting fit and staying fit, I hope. But it's a big ask. It's a big ask. Without that little run we had, we'd have been looking really. But again, you've got to, I think the alternative would be not spending money or not getting players in. I think there's no alternative. I think they've got to, no matter who's the manager, then they've got to bring players in to get us goals, because I think the rest of the team can hold its own at this level. There's not I've seen a lot of, obviously, the games they're showing on Sky now, they're showing games ref. I've seen teams like Burnley, West Brom, they don't look that brilliant. You know, I mean, some of the teams, some of the football it's not fantastic this year. You know, it's not so much of a muchness. You know, when
I agree.
When 11 teams are separated by 4 points at this time of the season, it's from 22nd to 11th. It's phenomenal, really, and everybody's beating every. I mean, there's no great sides in the league. I don't think. Not this year. It's pretty. Luton looked awful for a team that's just come down.
Didn't they? Didn't look like a Premiership side at all.
They look like a team coming up from League One.
Yeah,
they played a lot of long ball football, but we just couldn't. They had one. They allowed one guy a free header, unfortunately, and that was the difference. Other than that, it was a shocking game, to be honest. Quality wise, it was awful. To be honest. It was awful. It was an awful game.
It was terrible. It was a dreadful game, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good game.
But we played into their hands, I suppose, by allowing it to be such a terrible game. So the Simic thing, we should just mention the Simic thing. So Simic obviously went to another one of Vincent's clubs. Hasn't scored goals, hasn't figured that much, but maybe they play a different formation. Maybe it doesn't work out. Didn't we sign him? Didn't we sign him in January or something like that? When did we sign him, Paul Rocker Simic? Or was it in the summer?
In the summer, yeah.
And we paid a couple of million on him, didn't we? So we signed the striker last few minutes of transfer window, and then we sent him out on loan. Yeah, but surely
my parent to our sorry, one of our family of clubs. Cardiff, isn't it, in Belgium?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, where Bagan went on loan last season, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other player went there. The Japanese, is he?
Oh, Sonoda. Yeah, he's on the way back too. Yeah.
He's another, again, young player. Well, I can see the sense in that. You see, as long as your recruitment's right and you identify that player, whoever this Simic is. I've never seen him.
I've not seen it. I've seen the highlights reel.
If you identify a player like that and you sign, especially a striker, a young striker, you take a chance, and then you put him out to a club to play at the top level because he's not going to play for us. To me, all that makes a lot of sense if it's the right player, and if it works out, it looks even better, doesn't it? I mean, so in a way, you could say the club are doing something right. That type of strategy to me is okay. I quite like that, and the fact that we're signing a lot of young. The last few windows have been far better. The type of players we've been signing, particularly younger players with more pace, more chance of selling them on in the future. Because football's all about trading, isn't it? You have to trade to survive. And we got McGuinness is the prime example of
he works. He shows the model works. Yeah.
It works. Swansea have done that for years, although they develop generally their own from their own academy. But that potentially is coming because there are lots of promising signs in the academy and the 21s and 23s and our youth system below. They're now coming through. There seems to be more of a pathway. So to me, there are a lot of positives happening, but the critical thing is we have to stay in this league.
Absolutely.
That is the be all and end all this season, which is why we come back to the point that we started the show on. I don't see any problem in them taking their time on this appointment. Personally, nothing's wrong. Keep it going, and just because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So in a way, don't rock it. Don't rock the boat. Don't change anything. Keep it as is, unless there's something fundamentally different that they think that can make a difference. That's just my view, because we've made those mistakes too many times in the past.
Yeah. Okay. We're right at the end of the show, and one thing, Gary, I'll lead into another question, but to close off. But the point that Mo that made about the January window. Wow, is this an important January window? Right. It's only a few weeks away. Who's going to be in charge? Will we bring anyone in? Will we get a striker? If we don't have a striker, I think it's going to be hard for us to climb the table, should we say? But leaving that to one side for now, maybe we'll come back. I'm sure I'll come back to it. Maybe by next week we might all know what's happening. Who knows? Sheffield Wednesday away on the weekend. How are we going to get on, Gary?
Well, you'd hope that they may be able to go up there and get a point. I'd be happy with that, as long as they beat QPR on the Wednesday. They're big games coming up against Stevenage, just like Portsmouth and Plymouth were. We beat the teams in that little spell. We beat the teams around us that we needed to beat, didn't we? And I think we need to do that again, because I think there'll be a bit of a panic set in again now. If we go 3 or 4 games without winning, having lost the last 2 before
absolutely pressure builds.
There'll be a pressure mounts then, and then this lot might panic then, and whatever we think about Reece staying, I think the players are behind him, but then the hierarchy might start to panic a bit earlier, and who knows?
And the transfer window.
The transfer window looming, and
the international break will have gone.
And then everything, and then there's another game kind of thick and fast, like 11 games before the, so who knows? They might panic then if he loses another couple of games, and we we are down in the relegation zone again, aren't we? So, I hope so.
Yeah, well, we all hope so. Mo, give us a score prediction for Sheffield Wednesday.
1-1. 1-1. Beat QPR, and then we got Coventry the Saturday. If we get 5 points in the next 3, that's a good return.
Oh, I'd bite your hand off for that.
Yeah.
I'd bite your hand off for that right now. Absolutely. That would be fine. That would be fine. That would be perfect. But who knows?
I know it is Cardiff City after all. Anyway, it's great. It's great to be a Cardiff City fan. There's nothing. There's always stuff to talk about. Let's put it that way. Anyway, thanks both. See you soon. Cheers, guys.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, lads.